Well, it's great to be together, and I'm Jonathan. If I haven't had the chance to meet you, it is great to be together. And this morning, we are continuing our series of talks that we've began a few weeks ago as we're looking at the life of Gideon in the Old Testament book of Judges. Old Testament book of Judges. So this is one of the first real stories that we get a picture into. And in case you're getting up to speed with us, when we began this story a few weeks ago, we are seeing the Israelites, the people of God, in a moment of great peril. They are being threatened on every side. Their enemy, these people called the Midianites, have been ransacking their homes and stealing their livestock and pillaging their villages. And the Israelites are freaked out and shook up. Have you ever been freaked out and shook up? Yeah, so this is where they're at right now. And that's where we meet Gideon. And he's hiding out too. And the scripture says that he is threshing wheat in a wine press, right? So basically, he's using the wrong tool for the wrong task. Any handymen out there? Well, then if you are like someone like me who tries to use a butter knife for everything, this is what we're talking about. And this is not Gideon's best moment. Right? So Gideon's kind of acting like a fool. He wouldn't want this to be on his profile picture, or he wouldn't want it to be it wouldn't be the best first impression, let's say. And this was the moment that the angel of the Lord visits him and says something quite counterintuitive. He says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." You know, this should be immensely encouraging to each of us. Because what it means is that God does not define us by our worst moments or by our foolish actions. Can I tell you that God doesn't define you by your foolish actions? No, when God looks at you, he doesn't just see who you are today, but he sees who he has called you to be. Some of you, even if you're honest, maybe even today, you might say that you're not in one of your finest moments. Maybe you're like Gideon was, walking through life with a butter knife when what you really need is a jackhammer. Can I tell you that God is not alarmed? He's not surprised. Actually, as we look at the story of Gideon, we see that God draws near. Can I just tell you, no matter where you are today, God wants to draw near to you today. The heart of God is to draw near to you today. So again, God calls Gideon mighty warrior. And he says, Gideon, actually, you are going to take out the Midianites. And Gideon's like, no. Like, come on. Like, that is ridiculous. No way. That's impossible. You have to have the wrong guy. And maybe as sort of a test, the angel gives Gideon a task. And it's kind of like, training him along. He says, Gideon, your first task is you need to take out your father's altar to Baal, which was an idol. Your first task is you have to take out this altar. In our last message, we said that sometimes to shake things up, anybody need a shake up? Sometimes to shake things up, sometimes to shake things, we have to break things. It reminds me of that phrase I used to hear in junior high, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? Like sometimes things got to get broken up, shaken up, wrecked a little bit. And we talked about the idols that we see in our everyday lives of family tradition and culture and success and how we have to see the reality that so many of us are running at so many things. And if we actually look up, we might realize we don't even know where we're going. And we ended our last message with the Spirit of the Lord coming on Gideon. And in a defining moment, Gideon blows a trumpet and summons all of his clansmen to battle. And today, as we meet back up with Gideon in Judges 7, we see a different man. We're starting to see that mighty warrior. He's torn down his father's altar, and now Gideon has 32,000 men at the ready for battle. Okay, are we ready? That's setting it up for today. So that's where we're going to pick up in verse 1. Judges 7:1. And it says this: early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, so that was the nickname they gave him after he took out the altar to Baal. So he's got a new nickname now. Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My strength has saved me. Now, announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. Okay, so we're seeing the first big wrinkle of the story. Gideon finally mans up. He has his main character moment. He blows the trumpet. He summons his clansmen to come around him. And God says, "Way to go, Gideon." Right? Is that what God said? Yes or no? No. I feel like you as a professor. Yes or no? No. He says, "Gideon, you have way too many men." And I'm sure Gideon had to have been like, "Are you for real, God?" Like he's totally confused. I mean, sometimes you say yes to God and life gets harder. Has anybody ever realized that? This is not a new phenomena. And this didn't make sense. Because we're going to find out later in Judges 8 that the Midianites had around 135,000 men. That's how many men they had. And Gideon, our bro Gideon, has kind of cobbled together 32,000 men. So this did not make any sense. How in the world could God tell Gideon, "Gideon, you have too many men"? We see right here in verse 2, when God says, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me, saying, 'My own strength has saved me.'" You see, we see here that to God, the battle was not against the Midianites. No, the battle to God is for the heart of his people. You see, you and I see battles all around us every day. Perhaps we might look at our families or our finances or complex situations. But you need to know that the biggest battle going on is for your heart. Because the reality is that we are constantly surrounded every day with a world of what I would call false saviors. Counterfeit gods, you could say. Oh, we would never call them saviors. But you want to know a good way to recognize the false saviors in your life? Just look at where you run to. Maybe another way to say it is, what are your go-tos? Like the first I think of is comfort. Some of us, our go-to is, what do? The first thing we do is we pull out our phone. We go straight to our phones and we just start scrolling. Or we just start vegging, right? Or maybe for some of us it's entertainment, where we sort of just look at our calendars and we jump from thing to thing and event to show to concert to movie to whatever I can to stimulate my mind and be a part of something. Or maybe we just go to activities. And we just pack our schedules full of things when we're running all around the county, and we're like that hamster in that wheel, and we just got to keep it going, because if I slow down and I stop, I don't even want to know what's inside there, right? Or maybe for some of us it's performance. And we hang our hat on our success in our job or in our business or in what people say about us. Or maybe for some of us we're just filled with people all the time. We look to people to approve of us and to be with us and to make us feel okay. Or obviously for many it's money and security. It's like, hey, I can create security around me by feeling like I have enough. And if I have enough, and if I'm at my threshold in my bank account, if that number is okay, then I can create an illusion of control that I can be at peace with. Many times we have our own strength. Sometimes being a strong person. We have a lot of strong people in this community. Sometimes being a strong person is actually the worst thing, because you can convince yourself that you can do it. And we easily end up making ourselves the God of our own lives. Now, this is what I want you to see. I want you to see that none of these things are implicitly bad. Like, actually, these are all good things in their time and in their moment, in different ways and in different seasons. But don't miss this. Sometimes God has to strip us of these things so that he can get to our hearts. Because I think sometimes he's like, hey, I think it's okay. I think God would say, hey, it's okay for this to be a thing in your life. Comfort and activities and money and people, those are good things, but it can't be the thing. It can be a thing, but not the thing. You see, God is jealous for your heart. God is jealous for your heart. You were bought with a price. You belong to him. We see this in the greatest commandment, Deuteronomy 6. It says, "Hear, O Lord, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. Love the Lord your God." With what? With all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength. God wants all of you. And sometimes he works in our lives through our circumstances so that he can get all of your heart. I think about our journey of church planting over these last nearly 20 years. And I recognize in many ways how true this has been in our lives. We moved here from Texas in 2007, and we helped start a church, and All Peoples San Diego, and it was a growing church and a thriving church, and actually grew rapidly. And then about 5 or 6 years later, we moved to Tijuana, and we started a church in Tijuana, and got to experience life in Tijuana for several years. And by God's grace, that church started growing and thriving and planting other churches. And I think about us moving here, and, if I'm honest, I think I was expecting that my experience and my cultural awareness and my language abilities and what I think I thought that would allow us just to sort of explode on the scene. I'm thinking, I always say, Chula Vista is like San Diego and Tijuana had a baby, right? Like Chula Vista is the child. And I'm thinking Chula Vista is the Mexican-American capital of the region. I'm literally Mexican-American. Like, I am a dual citizen. I got a Mexican mom and a gringo dad. Like we got this. I've planted churches. I can lead worship. I can preach sermons. Si se puede. And we came in with a plan. But as the great philosopher Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And honestly, it felt like we came here and we got punched in the face. We had a lady that offered to sell us her home, and we thought we had an amazing deal, only to find out that she was stringing us along and took advantage of us. We put our kids in a new school, and it was challenging and bumpy, and some of our kids were getting bullied. We started meeting as a church with an amazing core team. A lot of you guys are here, which has been the backbone of our church from day one. But it was so hard to get people to come. And I remember one Sunday we were in the park, and we weren't having visitors come on Sundays. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to take a page out of my church planting playbook. And this Sunday for the sermon, we're not going to really do the sermon. No, we are going to get in groups, and we are going to go out and invite people to church. Like, we're going to do outreach during the sermon. That was the grand plan. Well, wouldn't you know, that was the Sunday that like 3 or 4 new families came. And so all of a sudden, these new families are now freaked out that we're about to send them on an outreach. And so, of course, I start getting like really friendly and soft and normal. And I'm like, hey, hey, it's optional. Some people can go out. If you want to stay, you can. We're going to have pizza here in a few minutes. So, like, I started it's like really trying to make it really, really soft. And I remember talking to this couple, and they're like, yeah, I think we're going to head out. I'm like, oh, well, they're like, we're really hungry. I was like, oh, well, the good thing is we have pizza. The guy's like, yeah, I think we're actually wanting some eggs. And I remember I was like, I wanted to get on my knees and be like, we'll get you some eggs. Like, we'll do whatever it takes. Like, we just want you to come. And needless to say, we never saw them again. You see, God, and I've realized this, God is after your heart. And sometimes He has to humble us. Sometimes, because He's committed to our hearts, we actually have to become weaker so that He can make us stronger. Because what I also know and what I've realized is that God knew my heart. And He knew that if we would have moved here and I was able to use all my church planting and preaching and bilingual skills and our church exploded, that would actually be the worst thing that could happen to me or for me. And it's the same reason why someone just writing you a check for that financial amount in your life could actually be the worst thing for you. It's the same reason why you fixing all of your issues yourself would actually be a big crisis. Because at the end of the day, you or someone else would become God. What if God wanted to bring a victory so ridiculous in your life that you could only say, God did this? Again, the battle isn't what you think it is. It's not your ministry or your finances or your marriage. The battle starts in your heart. The battle starts with it. Is it about God or is it about you? And we keep reading. Okay, we're still in the story. Verse 4. But the Lord said to Gideon, okay, so Gideon whittled the men down to 10,000, 22,000 left. Verse 4, But the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told them, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps separate them from those who kneel down to drink. 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. Like, you can't even make this stuff up. What in the world? All the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provision and trumpets of the others. Okay, so I just want to make sure we're seeing this here. Gideon starts with 32,000. Again, 32,000 against 135,000. And God says, Gideon, you have too many. Then he gets taken down to 10,000. And then finally down to 300 men. I saw a commentary that some pastors like to claim that the 300 that were chosen because they were vigilant, because they kept their heads up while they were drinking, I guess, lapping like dogs, so because they were being vigilant about the enemy. I suppose that's possible, but the text never says that. I actually think that the point isn't really that God chose the best soldiers. I think the point is actually that God chose almost no soldiers. Right? Like, here is the reality. This is becoming a suicide mission unless God shows up. This is becoming a suicide mission unless God shows up. And actually, I think that's exactly the point. You see, this is where we have to have a bit of a wake-up call, and where we have to remember that our walk with God is called the faith for a reason. Because oftentimes God doesn't call us to do something that we can do. No, sometimes he calls us to do things that we would never be able to do in a million years. Because if you can do it with your own strength and your own intellect and your own wisdom, it may be good, but that doesn't mean it's God. Let me tell you where God is. God is in that moment when you have nothing left, when you have no idea how you're going to go up the mountain in front of you. God is in that moment when you are freaked out and you are afraid and you want to turn back because you feel like a complete fool. And can I just tell you that when you are in that moment, don't move. Don't freak out. Don't be afraid. Don't turn back. No, wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord and watch him move. Let's keep reading. Verse 8. Now the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. During that night, the Lord said to Gideon, get up, go down against the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. Okay, so God's like saying, hey, before we get into all this, I want you to see what's really happening behind the scenes. So he and Purah, his servant, went down to the outpost of the camp. Verse 12. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley, thick as locusts. Thick as locusts. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling a friend his dream. I love this. I had a dream, he was saying. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, this can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up! The Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." Okay, a few things I want to highlight here. This is so good. Number one, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be afraid. The first thing God says is, hey, Gideon, in case you're afraid, Gideon's like, check. God's like, I thought so. Hey, go down to the camp and listen to what they're saying. And I love this. This is like a movie, right? Like they sneak down and they start eavesdropping on a conversation between two people. And there's this whole thing about this guy's dream about a loaf of barley coming into the camp. And then the other guy makes this kind of seemingly random conclusion. And he says, oh, that has to be none other than Gideon. He's about to wreak havoc on this place. Can you imagine Gideon's face as he's hearing this conversation? You know what I love about God? I love that God knows our weaknesses. He knows when you're freaked out and afraid and wanting to quit. God knows. And here's the deal. If you are willing to wait on him and watch him make a way, what's he going to do? God will put people and provision and promises in your path to keep you going. Just want to say it again. God will put people and provision and promises in your pathway to keep you going. So many times we don't see these things because we're not willing to wait. What does that mean? It means, number two, it means don't freak out. Look at the person next to you and say, don't freak out. Say, no te asustes. No te paniques. Like guys, we have to stop taking matters into our own hands. Because this story could have gone very differently. Or Gideon could have just panicked and done something really dumb. Too many times, when we take things into our own hands, when we don't wait, we end up blowing up relationships. We end up burning bridges. We end up in places and with people that we were never supposed to be. Can I just give you a quick pro tip? As your pastor and friend, I know a lot of you guys. When your back's against the wall and you don't know what to do, be very quiet. Don't say anything. Because when you say something, it doesn't make things better. Actually, too many times we say something dumb and we end up in a totally different battle. You guys know what I'm saying? And then actually we're really distracted and confused because we don't even know what battle we're fighting. I don't know who that's for today, but we wait on God. And waiting on God many times means we stop talking and we listen to him. We listen to community. Number 3, last thing I want to say for this section is the battle is for your worship. I love verse 15. It says, when Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." You see, what I love is that Gideon finally gets it. Because up to this point, it's kind of been all about him. We see him in chapter 6, and he's crying on the angel's shoulder. And he's like, I'm the least of these, and I'm from the worst clan, and I don't know how to read. And I just made that up. But, he's just like he's crying the sad story. And if you keep reading, right, he keeps saying, well, God, are you really calling me? And make the fleece wet or make it dry? Or like all these confirmations, like, God, it's like, look, bro, come on. Like, he's insecure, and he's tentative, and he's waffling. But watch this. As Gideon hears the men talking, he's like having this revelation. And he's realizing that God has already gone ahead of him. And that God is going to give him the victory. He realizes this whole thing isn't about me at all. This is about God and who he is and his strength and power. I don't know about you, but sometimes I need to get my head checked. Because our culture and the marketing machine and the whole thing has really done us a disservice. Why do I say that? Because it gives us this idea that I am the most important thing happening in the world. Like, how am I doing? And what am I wearing? And how am I feeling? But that actually wasn't how God designed us. To be obsessed with ourselves, no. Actually, if you look at the two greatest commandments, it's to love who? It's to love him. And then it's to love others. It's to love him, and it's to love them. What if your greatest breakthrough came, just hang with me, as you stopped thinking so much about yourself? Like, what if you stopped thinking so much about how you feel and what people think about you, and what if you just became so consumed with God and his people? You know what I think would happen? I think you would look up and you might realize that you're the freest you've ever been. I think your relationships might be the healthiest they've ever been. I think some of those same old sins would all of a sudden be in the rearview mirror. I love what Pastor Jimmy in Texas would often say. He says, as you look to him and them, God will take care of you. Last point, God will give you the battle plan. And God will give you the battle plan. We're going to end here, verse 16. This is how the story, this is the climax and the conclusion of the story, verse 16. Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them with torches inside. Watch me, he told them. Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp, blow yours and shout, for the Lord and for Gideon. Gideon's like, you see what I did there? Like, bro, okay, you're going to throw your name in there. Verse 19, Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just as after they had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets and broke the jars that were in their hands. Verse 20, the 3 companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hand and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Verse 21, while each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The army fled to that place, towards Zerara, as far as the border of Abel Meholah near Tabbath. Verse 23, Israelites from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites and seize the waters of the Jordan ahead of them, as far as Beth-barah. So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they seized the waters of the Jordan as far as Beth-barah. They also captured 2 of the Midianite leaders, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. They pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was by the Jordan. Wow. Okay. God says, here's how we're going to do it. This is what you need for the mission. Leave your sword at home. You need a trumpet, a jar, and a torch. Like, no sword necessary. And then this is what you're going to do. This is the battle plan. You're going to blow the trumpet. You're going to break the jar. And then you're going to lift up a shout of victory. I have to think there had to have been some kind of strategic aspect to this where, the Midianites are waking up and they're hearing chaos and crashing and smashing and shouting, and they had no idea it was only 300 people. But I love this in verse 21. It says, watch this. While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. What does this mean? It means that Gideon's men were not charging into the camp. No, what did they do? They didn't move. They literally blew their trumpets, stood their ground, and watched God fight their battle. The people were so confused that they destroyed one another. Again, the people of God waited on him. They stood their ground, and they watched him win the battle. God was like, I could do more with a clay jar than you could ever do with a sword. Some of us have been fighting. Natalie, you can come up. We've been in a battle. And might it be that God is inviting you to drop your weapons and worship? Might he have a clay jar to put in your hand, something that maybe doesn't make any sense at all, but it is actually the tool he's putting in your hands to bring a victory. Maybe it's through fasting, one of those false comforts, one of those false saviors. Maybe it's through a step of generosity that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's by moving toward that person that has hurt you with kindness or forgiveness. Maybe it is just by keeping your mouth shut and listening to the Lord. Can I invite you today to simply lay down your weapons and bow down and worship so that he can fight the battle for you? Sometimes the greatest step of faith we can take is it's simply surrender. It's throwing in the towel. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say, God, I can't do it. Only you can. Can I just tell you, when you get there, get ready to see God move. Get ready to see God move.